I must make a confession that most women will despise me for sharing with you. Society tells you that if you are feeling invisible and disrespected in your later years, it is simply because you aren't communicating enough, compromising enough, or adapting to modern relational rules. Let me tell you right now, that is an absolute lie. The real reason you are emotionally exhausted, stripped of your peace, and constantly feeling like you give everything only to receive crumbs in return is because your honorable attempt to avoid loneliness has mutated into quiet self-erasure. I am going to expose the raw, uncomfortable truth about female psychology that no one else has the courage to admit to a senior man. In the next 10 seconds, I will reveal exactly how we silently use your desire for harmony to keep you powerless, and how you can instantly shatter this illusion to reclaim your ultimate dignity. Every grand relationship is an imposing fortress, built on the heavy stones of mutual reverence. But a massive structure never collapses overnight from a single catastrophic blow. The destruction always begins with tiny, invisible cracks in the foundation. You must understand that these subtle fractures are not accidental mistakes. They are deliberate structural tests designed by female psychology to measure the true load-bearing strength of your boundaries. The first undeniable crack is the interrupted story. You begin sharing a memory carved from decades of hard-earned wisdom, and suddenly her attention drifts. She cuts across your sentence to discuss something entirely trivial, leaving your words hanging in the cold air. The senior man who commands his space recognizes this instantly. It is never a simple lapse in focus. It is a calculated erasure of your very presence. By allowing that interruption without immediate correction, you permit water to seep into the masonry of your dignity. We women instinctively register your silence as quiet submission. Your willingness to swallow the insult signals that your psychological walls are slowly crumbling. The wise patriarch knows that yielding the floor is the first step toward surrendering the throne. You must learn to stop talking immediately and observe her glaring disrespect. The second structural fracture is the benevolent discard. This happens when you express a firm conviction only to be met with a condescending smile. She treats your worldview as a charming relic from an outdated era. The dignified man understands that this gentle patronization is a highly toxic acid eroding his authority. It is designed to shrink your legacy into a harmless joke, neutralizing your power without triggering your anger. When you tolerate these insidious offenses, your magnificent fortress becomes an abandoned ruin. We watch as the mortar of your self-respect disintegrates, leaving you fully exposed to our chaotic emotional storms. You believe you are keeping the peace, but you are merely financing your own psychological eviction. Yet these early tremors are nothing compared to the devastation ahead. The next signs of silent contempt are even more impossible to detect. The collapse of your dignity accelerates when we begin to manipulate your emotional bank account. You believe you are building relational wealth by compromising, but you are silently bleeding capital. The third fracture is the delegated decision. We women will ask for your guidance on completely trivial matters while entirely excluding you from monumental choices. The wise patriarch recognizes this immediate deficit. It is a calculated bankruptcy. By consulting you only on the insignificant, we effectively downgrade your status from a major shareholder to a mere consultant. Every time you accept this illusion of authority, a massive withdrawal is made from your reserves of self-esteem. Then comes the fourth insidious tactic, the public correction. You are speaking among friends or family, and she swiftly contradicts your memory or softly mocks your perspective before an audience. This is never about factual accuracy. It is a hostile takeover of your social value. When you smile and absorb that public humiliation, you are authorizing a direct transfer of your power into her accounts. The senior man who masters his domain never allows his public equity to be devalued by a partner. He knows that tolerating this subtle disrespect leaves him in an irreversible deficit of authority. The final and most devastating blow is the comparative compliment. She praises you by explicitly stating you are not as terrible as her previous partners or other weaker men. This sounds like an emotional dividend, but it is truly a counterfeit currency. She is framing your highest virtues against the lowest possible benchmarks. You are being paid in worthless praise, engineered to keep your expectations comfortably impoverished. You accept these counterfeit coins because you fear absolute emotional poverty. But psychology dictates that every time you swallow these quiet indignities, your debt multiplies entirely unseen. The untouchable veteran understands that true wealth is found only in the absolute refusal to play a rigged market. Look closely at the heavy compromises you make every single day. How bankrupt is your emotional account right now? But recognizing these silent offenses is merely the beginning of your awakening. Now we must uncover the dark psychological engine driving this behavior and how you can forge it into an untouchable weapon. If you have ever noticed that women pull away precisely when you try the hardest for them, stay with me. The true reason your indifference is our greatest weakness is about to be revealed. You have spent decades fighting exhausting skirmishes, trying to correct every minor disrespect and demand basic reverence. The exhausted man believes that winning these daily arguments will secure his borders. But true strategy dictates that engaging in these petty conflicts is exactly how you lose the overarching war. Every time you step onto our emotional battlefield to defend your honor, you have already surrendered your superior position. We women design these microscopic battles not to be resolved, but to test your emotional discipline. When you react with anger, negotiation, or logic, you hand over your ammunition. You are firing your heaviest artillery at phantom targets, draining your vital reserves while we safely watch from the trenches. The untouchable veteran understands that our provocations are merely desperate attempts to measure his unshakable stability. Winning this invisible war requires a radical and terrifying shift in your tactical doctrine. You must stop returning fire entirely. The absolute cessation of your effort is the most devastating counterattack in human psychology. When a commander suddenly withdraws his elite forces from the valley, the enemy does not celebrate a victory. Instead, they are paralyzed by a deep, terrifying suspicion of an impending massive trap. By refusing to deploy your energy into our chaotic campaigns, you instantly reclaim ultimate sovereignty over your territory. Your silence becomes an impenetrable armor that no manipulation can pierce. The senior man who masters this withdrawal ceases to be a vulnerable target and becomes a dominating force of nature. How exactly do you execute this total tactical surrender to achieve absolute victory? The first maneuver changes everything. The ultimate truth is that disrespect is rarely about the active insults we women deliver. It is fundamentally about the vast, silent vacuum you permit within your own boundaries. When you fail to occupy your territory with unshakable authority, we naturally expand to consume that empty space. The senior man must realize that yielding ground never buys affection. It only invites a hostile occupation of his dignity. I will confess a reality that we whisper only among ourselves. A man does not command absolute reverence through loud aggression or constant demands. True dominance is entirely a matter of gravitational weight. The formidable patriarch possesses a massive psychological density that bends the room around him. He does not need to raise his voice because his mere physical and emotional presence forces everyone else to naturally adjust. Conversely, the man who constantly chases our validation is fundamentally light. He lacks inner substance, making him easily blown around by the chaotic winds of female emotion. When you eagerly react to our subtle tests, complain about our shifting moods, or anxiously explain your actions, you reveal your lack of density. We instantly feel this weightlessness and instinctively dismiss you as a fragile object unworthy of deep respect. The untouchable veteran operates on entirely different laws of social physics. His calm detachment gives him the heavy, immovable gravity of a massive star. He refuses to shift his internal axis to accommodate our emotional storms. By remaining deeply anchored in his own self-sufficiency, he creates an overwhelming magnetic pull. We stop seeing him as an option to discard and begin desperately orbiting his quiet, mysterious power. This gravitational force is generated solely by your absolute willingness to walk away. When you require absolutely nothing from our presence, your silence becomes incredibly dense. We feel the heavy pressure of a man who is entirely complete in his solitude. This is not a calculated strategy of ignoring us. It is the genuine, terrifying realization that your fortress is perfectly secure, whether we are inside or not. Here is the darkest law of our psychology, a secret driving our most primal behaviors. We women cannot, on an instinctive level, disrespect a man who is genuinely at peace with the possibility of losing us. It is a biological absolute. Your authentic indifference acts as an impenetrable shield against manipulations, short-circuiting our instinct to test you and replacing it with a desperate need for your ultimate approval. This absolute detachment starves our ego, but perfectly feeds our deeply rooted desire for a formidable leader. We are psychologically programmed to relentlessly push your boundaries, secretly hoping to strike immovable iron rather than crumbling clay. When your heavy presence shatters provocations without a single word, you trigger our deepest reverence. You prove that your internal kingdom is far too valuable to be disturbed by petty, insignificant games. A massive fortress needs no loud alarms to frighten intruders. Its heavy stone walls command silent awe. Your total refusal to engage in relational drama is the iron drawbridge pulling shut. By guarding your vital energy and locking away your attention, you become a sanctuary of power. We are left outside in the cold, staring up at a magnificent structure we suddenly realize we are desperate to enter. You must permanently sink beneath the chaotic surface of our shifting moods. Descend into the cold, silent, and heavy ocean floor of your own absolute autonomy, where no superficial storm can ever reach or move you. Stop trading your golden years for the worthless currency of temporary validation. Reclaim your unshakable sovereignty by accepting that your supreme value exists entirely independent of any woman's fleeting and unpredictable interest. Your greatest appeal to us was never what you could offer, but your stoic ability to walk away without looking back. Look at your life this very night and ask yourself how much of your personal kingdom you have surrendered in exchange for empty attention. If this truth unlocked your power, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your thoughts below. Self-mastery always wins. The ultimate truth is that the reverence we women offer is never a gift you can earn or purchase. It is merely a direct reflection of your own internal self-valuation. When you completely abandon the desperate chase for companionship, you reclaim a supreme power. The senior man who masters his solitude commands absolute respect simply by existing. You must become an immovable lighthouse, standing firmly against the chaotic ocean of female emotion. While the surface waters violently crash and swirl with unpredictable storms, your foundation must remain buried deep in solid rock. The untouchable veteran does not panic when the waves rise. He simply remains still, completely indifferent to the raging weather. We instinctively unleash these emotional hurricanes against your shores for one dark, primal reason. We desperately need to test the structural integrity of your boundaries. We push your limits only to find the immense comfort of a wall that refuses to break. When you remain perfectly unbending, you provide the exact psychological security we unconsciously crave. Your greatest magnetic appeal to us was never the resources you could offer, but your stoic ability to walk away without looking back. Look closely at your life this very night. Ask yourself how much of your personal kingdom you have surrendered in exchange for a fleeting moment of empty attention. Reclaim your silent throne. If this confession has unlocked the reality of your absolute power, subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Stop fighting on a battlefield designed for your defeat and embrace the quiet triumph of your independence. Remember this final truth about female nature. A man's self-mastery is his greatest magnet. Self-mastery always wins.